Wounded but not broken, with host Patrick Scroggins. As a U.S. Army attack helicopter pilot deployed in Iraq, Patrick faced a devastating crash, which resulted in him dying, losing a leg, and a slew of broken bones. Patrick's story of rehabilitation has helped others to overcome their own obstacles. Each week, Patrick recounts stories of inspiration and interviews guests who have overcome remarkable obstacles. This is Wounded but Not Broken, with your host, Patrick Scroggins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wounded but Not Broken here, February 14th, Valentine's Day. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. That being said, tonight's show is going to be a little bit short because people have other engagements that they need to get to and spend time with loved ones and their lovely wives and such. So right now I'm here again with Joe Hahn. We're gonna pick up kind of where we left off. We're gonna back up a little bit because reviewing the last show, I just feel like there's a lot more to Joe's younger years that we could all learn from, and it's a very inspiring story. And so I'd like to welcome Joe, and let's just dive right into it, man.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So I know you hashed over, your younger years in foster child and all that kind of stuff. And I know there's a lot of people that can relate, and I know it's probably a pretty tough subject to talk about overcoming that kind of adversities, being that young. But you had mentioned that it kind of set you up for, it puts you in the right mindset. But, let's go back. Let's talk about that of, kind of your growing up and your coming to age.
Yeah. Like they say, pressure can do two things, they can create diamonds or it can make it crumble. So, but, born and raised in Texas, born in Odessa, actually, great football, part of the world, and, relocated to, Central Texas, about 4 or 5, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and it was untreatable. So kind of witnessed her go through as much treatment as she could, but then, it's back in the 80s, so it wasn't as advanced as today, but, still one of those diseases that you can't really fight all the way. So it was tough kind of watching her. I remember going to visit her at the hospital. I remember her coming home. I didn't realize it when I was younger, obviously, but I thought she was kind of over the hump, but it was complete opposite. She'd come home on hospice, and it was tough. I remember the day she died, hearing my dad crying, and then we got picked up by some folks from the church that we were going to at the time. And after her funeral, my dad just kind of fell apart. He had already had a bunch of issues with alcohol, but he was he definitely fell apart. And he had my brother, my sister, and I, so the three of us. Three of us that were really small. My sister was like 2. I was, like I said, I was about 4 or 5. My brother's a year older than me. And he tried as best he could, but definitely, in the end, CPS came and picked us up. Child Protective Services for the state of Texas, just because my dad wasn't able to take care of us amidst his depression. So, yeah, 5.5. My first emergency shelter, kind of just confused and lost. They actually picked up my brother and sister first because I was in kindergarten at the time. So I got off at noon. I remember riding my bike home, kind of getting to the house. My dad was kind of scrambling around. He was panicking. I was, just kind of lost. And I was like, hey, where's Dennis and Tiffany? And he was like, all right, get in the car. And we were going to, I remember it was kind of a funny little day because at first we started driving up to Oklahoma where my aunt and uncle lived. And then he turned around and started driving the opposite direction. And he went back and goes, hey, you want to go live in Mexico? And I was just like completely confused. But he ended up turning back around and went back to the house and slept at the neighbor's house. And then the next day that the state came and picked me up by myself. And so I ended up in a different emergency shelter than my brother and sister did initially. And we floated around for about 2 to 3 years in different homes, and we finally got together at a home where they kind of put us all together because my dad was, well, they were trying to give my dad an opportunity to kind of straighten himself out and take us back, but he couldn't pull himself together. He was down a deep, dark hole, and the state of Texas ended up terminating his parental rights, and we went up for adoption. The first time I was about 8. At this awesome home, these people were really excited to take us in, and we get to the home. Great people lived out in the country. They actually owned emus. That's how they were making their money. Believe it or not, adoption is a costly process, no matter how you look at it. And they want to make sure you're financially stable as well as good home, married and not too many obligations. So as people worked at home, they raised emus. A couple months into, because you have like a 6-month call it a trial period, but you kind of get used to living at being a family together. The people that aren't used to having kids are getting used to having kids, and the kids are getting used to have a full-time family. At this point, I'd already been through at least 10, 12 different foster homes. A couple months into it, they were kind of telling us that they only wanted our little sister. They didn't want the 2 boys because they always wanted a little girl, and me and my brother, I guess, were kind of a handful at the time. And so they asked the caseworker if they could just have her. State Texas caseworker at the time, she was awesome. Basically told them flat out, no, you got to adopt all 3 of them. We're trying to keep these 3 together. They've been through a lot. They put us back into foster care. We bounced around to more homes. And then second time we went for adoption, about 13. Same thing ended up panning out was they wanted my little sister. She's a couple of years younger than us. So initial time she was like 5, and the second time she was like 8. Same thing. The home was all like, can we just adopt a little girl? So it was tough. They pulled me and my brother aside, and they sat us down. I was 13, he was 14. They basically explained to us, like, hey, we can put all 3 of you guys back in foster homes and try to put you guys up for adoption, but you guys are getting of age, you and your brother, that no one wants to adopt a teenage kid, especially teenage boys. And they basically gave us a choice. They're like, hey, you guys want all 3 to go back into care, or do you want to have your sister become adopted by this family and you guys go back into foster care? So now we talked about it, and we're like, hey, we want our little sister to at least have some resemblance of a good life. So we blessed it and nodded to it, told her casework at the time, yeah, let's do it. Keep her there, let her have the family, and we'll go back to foster care. Bounced around to about 20 or 30 more homes before I finally settled in one foster home my junior in high school. Was actually a lifesaver, because at the time I was at home. I kind of mentioned it last episode about the home I was at, that basically the kid graduated high school and they dropped him off at a bus station, and that was the home before my last one. I got scared and nervous. I didn't have a driver's license, I had a bank account. About 16 at the time, about to turn 17. I wanted to apply to colleges and do all the stuff, but the home I was at didn't have any interest in it, because it takes a little effort to drive kids to take the ACTs and SATs, and being foster parents, you only get paid a certain amount, and they only got paid to take care of us. They didn't get paid for any extracurricular activities. Yeah, the last home I was at, I requested to be moved again. Caseworker I had basically explained to me that I wasn't going to be allowed to move anywhere else because I've moved too much, and my only option was a hospital. So they wanted to put me in a hospital care because they thought something was wrong with me. But believe it or not, the baseball coach at the school I was at was foster parents. And before the last-ditch effort, my caseworker kind of reached out to the other foster homes in the town. And lo and behold, the baseball coach that was there said, yeah, we'll take them. And the caseworker was quite pleasantly surprised because the rest of the homes kind of didn't want to step on anybody's toes. It was a small community, and they turned me down immediately. But no, they took me in, and I immediately hit the ground running with these folks. Ended up getting a driver's license that summer. I started working on a ranch for $5 an hour, building fences and stuff like that. It was no crap, like really hard, tough Texas work, which I'm grateful for because it kind of taught me some good life lessons too. And they helped me, and they set me up for success. I ended up going to if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to get into the college I was in because they helped me with all that stuff. But no, they're the foster family that I still talk to this day, and I consider them pretty much my family.
Man, that's a pretty powerful story, and it just brings us right now. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to let that everything sink into the listeners about what you just said, and we'll pick back up where you left off after the break. Here's a word from our sponsors.
So put your weapon next to mine. Put your weapon next to mine.
You're listening to Wounded But Not Broken with host Patrick Scroggin. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Take right on down the line. Come on over.
My father was the best truck driver I've ever known in my life. Like a family tradition.
I'm a truck driver myself. I drove around the state with my cat.
To be the truck driver, you not just only see where you go, you see the world in the larger perspective.
This is a really good time to be in the trucking industry. The dispatchers get good loads for them. The equipment is very new, and then it's very reliable.
At GTS Transportation, we make dreams come true by employing truck drivers, dispatchers, mechanics, and many other occupations. Consider joining our rapidly expanding team where we put quality, human dignity, and respect back into the workforce. Contact us by visiting our website at gtscarrier.com or call us at 847-754-4667. That number again, 847-754-4667.
Dallas Corporation and Dallas Logistics, a proud supporter of the Veterans Radio broadcast for over 15 years. High-quality printing services and warehouse distribution have been our hallmark since 1985, serving Fortune 100 companies for over 35 years. Check us out at www.dallascorp.com.
Attention, all U.S. veterans. You have served this country with honor and pride. So why is it so difficult to receive the benefits you deserve? Filing a VA claim is complicated, it's cumbersome, and time-consuming. Many veterans have a problem identifying what conditions they should apply for. VDAC, Veterans Disability Application Caddy, is an online application that greatly assists you with filling out your application and identifying the disabilities that you're entitled to. The VDAC process takes about 15 to 30 minutes from start to finish. The entire process is simple and easy to use. The software automatically cross-references the VA database to determine what presumptive conditions you are entitled to, as well as any secondary conditions. Once done, a fully completed VA form is generated with supporting material. To find out more, go to nifv.org and click on the VDAC button. Again, the website is nifv.org and click on VDAC.
Welcome back to Wounded But Not Broken with host Patrick Scroggin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I know that that was a pretty powerful segment of that episode, and for Joe to open up and tell that story, I'm grateful. I think a lot of people can learn from that because if you look at it from a different perspective, bad things happen to good people, but it's up to them good people to make the best of the bad things. And, I can't speak for Joe, but to me, that would be, I know Joe's mindset and he's not going to fail. And so that just made him stronger from dealing with that from such a young age. I know that Joe and I had similar, younger life experiences with mother having cancer and dying and stuff like that. And it's, it changes you. And so, you just like when something bad happens to you, you can look at it a couple of different ways. You can get sad and feel sorry for yourself and want people to take care of you, or you can, look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is not going to beat me, and I'm going to become the best son of a bitch that ever lived. And that's the mindset you got to have. And it sounds like, that's what Joe's done. I mean, he's become, the things that Joe accomplished in his life are unbelievable. But Joe, I just have a couple questions for you. So at a young age, I mean, I know that had to affect you. When did you start approaching that stuff as, and turn it into a positive to really drive you?
God, it was in my high school years for sure. Like 8th grade kind of on. I remember before that in elementary school and beginning of my middle school years, like 6th grade, 7th grade, I was in some dark places. I was definitely super depressed. I felt unwanted, bounced around from home to home, just from different perspectives. I bounced around to so many places. I started seeing foster homes that I was initially put into when I was like 5 or 6. And then when I'm like 12, 13, I'm like, hey, I used to live here. And they're like, yeah. And then we had to move you, and you're back now because there's not a whole lot of other homes we can move you through. I felt unimportant and definitely unwanted. And as a kid, it was a tough experience to get through. Definitely went through a phase where I didn't really give a crap about anybody, and pretty stubborn at times. And there was nothing really I felt like that he could threaten you with, kind of deal. And like, you won't be able to go home, because a lot of foster care is usually pretty temporary unless you're going to be somewhere for adoption or whatever. A lot of kids, if they started having troubles, they would be like, hey, you got to be, on point as well as your parents before you guys get placed back in your home. They couldn't really threaten me with that since I really didn't have anywhere else to go.
Did you go through like a lot of bullying at school and stuff like that?
I did. I was kind of goofy in school. Definitely kind of used that to hide some of my darker times. And so, big goofball. I wasn't afraid to take a dare. Sometimes I would make stuff up to seem cool, but no, I definitely went through a couple schools, because I went through big schools, small schools, medium-sized schools, and especially being a foster kid, you're not one of the kids that's been there since kindergarten, that's been a part of the community since, especially in Texas, very community-based. So at first, being the new kid's kind of cool, but afterwards they kind of find out you're a foster kid, and it's like it's definitely a different perspective on what kids think of you. It was definitely was bullied quite a bit in my elementary and junior high years.
So the way you look at it now, I mean, the things that you've accomplished are tremendous, and we're going to talk more about that next week. But you look at it now, would you change anything?
It's tough, because I wouldn't want to change it, because I definitely experienced a lot as a kid that kind of helped shape who I am. There's some things I wish I would have had an older version of me to kind of shake myself a little bit. Be like, hey, dude, all you got to do is kind of focus on something. But the big thing that was my focus growing up, I wouldn't change anything in the grand scheme of things. But the big thing that I was focused on when I was growing up was being a doctor. Like, ever since I learned that, my mom died of cancer, I was like 6, 7 years old. When my dad lost his rights and they're trying to put up for adoption, at that age, I was like, what, I'm going to cure cancer and be the guy that does it. And I did all the into science and math, and I had this fake lab coat and would pretend like I was mixing stuff up, and had this microscope that I always carried with me. As much as I could have bounced around from home to home, but I definitely wouldn't really change too much about it.
And so the doctor dream that you had, you were doing that, right? Like you were going to A&M to be a doctor.
Yeah, had a pre-med. I was going to pre-med. Biomedical science was the degree, bachelor's degree I was going after, and I was doing real well. I'm like a 3.8 something in college my first year. I was horrible at history and English, so it was a struggle for me. But like organic chemistry, anatomy, and stuff, I was crushing those things. It was just something that really interested me. So yeah, I was doing great when I was in college, and that was my main focus. Like the military, like I mentioned before, the military really didn't cross my mind until after September 11th.
Right, same for me. I mean, it was a whole lot of us. That was kind of a turning point in our lives, in our country, and the history. Just wanted to be a part of it. But that being said, we're going to break one more time here for word from our sponsors. When we come back, I'm going to give a closing because it's Valentine's Day, and a lot of us have things planned. And then I'll just say that next week that we are going to jump into Joe's amazing military career. So we'll be right back. Word from our sponsors.
So put your weapon next to mine. Put your weapon next to mine.
You're listening to Wounded But Not Broken with host Patrick Scroggin. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Attention, looking for semi-drivers nationwide. GTS Transportation of Burr Ridge, Illinois is looking to hire or partner with experienced CDL holders in every state. If you are going to drive, why not drive for the best? Whether you are driving solo, as a team, or as an owner-operator, GTS is looking to add you to their rapidly growing company. Become part of one of the most respected, driver-friendly, and successful transportation companies in America, where drivers are treated as royalty. Contact us at gtscarrier.com. Again, gtscarrier.com. Or call us at 847-754-4667. That number again, 847-754-4667. We would love to help you, which in turn helps everyone. GTS is an equal opportunity employer.
Dallas Corporation and Dallas Logistics, a proud supporter of the Veterans Radio broadcast for over 15 years. High-quality printing services and warehouse distribution have been our hallmark since 1985, serving Fortune 100 companies for over 35 years. Check us out at www.dallascorp.com.
Attention, all U.S. veterans. You have served this country with honor and pride. So why is it so difficult to receive the benefits you deserve? Filing a VA claim is complicated, it's cumbersome, and time-consuming. Many veterans have a problem identifying what conditions they should apply for. VDAC, Veterans Disability Application Caddy, is an online application that greatly assists you with filling out your application and identifying the disabilities that you're entitled to. The VDAC process takes about 15 to 30 minutes from start to finish. The entire process is simple and easy to use. The software automatically cross-references the VA database to determine what presumptive conditions you are entitled to, as well as any secondary conditions. Once done, a fully completed VA form is generated with supporting material. To find out more, go to nifv.org and click on the VDAC button. Again, the website is nifv.org and click on VDAC.
Welcome back to Wounded But Not Broken with host Patrick Scroggin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Here with Joe. Joe, I got a couple of questions, just two questions, and then we're going to close it up for tonight. But so, first question is, how is your brother and sister, and what are they doing now?
My older brother, he went to college for a little bit, but ended up ultimately becoming a truck driver. He's been a truck driver, since he was like 19, 20, so over 20 years now. My sister, she struggled a little bit in high school years. Actually, when I was in college at A&M, she ended up dropping out of high school and moved in with me, and I told her, I was like, hey, you can't just live here for free and do what you want. You got to finish your high school degree. Ultimately, she ended up getting her GED, and now she's a physical therapist assistant. So she works with old people, young folks with disabilities and injuries and whatnot. I think part of my stuff that I went through when I got hurt kind of inspired her to get into that field. She's always been kind of like I was, wanting to do something in the medical field. And now she, day in and day out, she helps physical therapy for lots of people. So I'm proud of her.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you all have a great relationship, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I was super keen, especially in my high school years, on keeping in touch with them. So I would harass my caseworkers. Back then, it was difficult because, in the 90s, especially early to mid-90s, there wasn't a whole lot of emails, all telephones attached to the wall, landlines. So especially about the homes we bounced around to, it was tough trying to keep track of their homes and their numbers. But I'd try to phone calls and snail mail, actually write them letters. And we graduated high school, and we all ended up, getting phones and whatnot. And like I said, now we're extremely close. And I talk to my brother at least once, twice a week. Same thing with my sister. And it's kind of rare because majority of kids that kind of graduate out of foster care without a whole lot of. Nowadays, they're actually got a whole lot of resources for kids transitioning out of foster care. But back then, they were very limited. So most kids would end up going back to their home states, kind of turning to crime or gangs or something. There's like a outrageous percentage, like 70-75% would ended up, getting in some type of trouble in some way, shape, or form. And so it's rare to see, especially all three siblings, kind of turn out to something great and not be stuck in somewhere. So,
yeah, that's awesome. And did your father ever come back into the picture? And I know that unfortunately he recently passed away, but did he come back in the future or in the picture, and you were able to repair some of that trauma from when you were younger?
So my senior year in high school, I had a CASA volunteer that was assigned to me, an advocate pretty much. And they helped me get a private investigator, and that was my one thing I wanted. I was like, hey, I don't want anything else in the world, but I want to make sure my dad's at my high school graduation. Can we find him? And we had a private investigator track him down to Washington State, and with the money I earned from the summer before working fences, we bought him a plane ticket. So him and his girlfriend at the time were at my high school graduation, and that was a big healing moment for me, just because, I was able to, I wasn't sure how he mentally took, not being around and not losing his parental rights and kind of just being a mess most of his life. But we told him, it's like, hey, the past is the past. Me and my brother graduated the year before, and I was graduating that year. And we told him, we're like, hey, we want you in our lives. There's no way that anybody can keep you away from that now. Because we're out of foster care, he wasn't allowed to come visit us after he lost his rights. But as adults, they had no say. It's up to us. And so we told him, hey, we want you in our lives. You are still our father. And repairing that relationship, especially the past 20 plus years, was ups and downs. That initial first couple months was great. He actually was starting to seek help. He was on a slew of other things besides alcohol. He was kind of addicted to some drugs. And I think him flying down there and seeing us and kind of hearing us say that we forgive him and we want to be a part of his life, he started going on a pretty good road there for a little bit, which was great. And yeah, no, we mended that relationship as best we could, and then started doing, being adults, starting to get into careers. I was going to college and I joined the Navy. And he kind of fell off the wagon again and started down his destructive path a little bit. The story with my dad was tough because, especially recently, past few years, he's been really hard. He's almost 70, but drugs and alcohol took a toll on his body, and he ended up going to a coma a few years back because he overdosed for about 3 days, and I thought that would kind of shake him sober. But after he got out of the hospital, got back to the house he was staying in, he ended up kind of falling back down that path again. But I told him, I was like, hey, man, you're not going to die alone no matter what path you choose. And so I basically would come around at least once a month, once every other month, and just harass him, make sure he had food and water, and I'd yell at his landlord. Because he was definitely getting neglected, but part of it was his fault and part of it was the landlord's fault. Long story short, though, he ended up getting hit by a car about 6 months ago because he decided he wanted Sonic at 1:30 in the morning while he was drunk and high. Ended up breaking both his legs pretty bad. They flew him out here closer to me, I live close to Dallas, to get surgery and whatnot, and he was like forced to sober up completely. Because obviously you're in the hospital getting your legs fixed. We've been through that, and so have I. Like, it was reconstructive kind of deal, plates and screws, the whole 9 yards. No, it was good seeing him clean, because after all the surgeries and he kind of came off of that, he was kind of getting motivated. He ended up developing an infection in one of his legs, and they had to amputate above the knee on it. And I thought I was going to lose him for depression, because he was super depressed there for about a month, 2 months. But then he started, they started talking about prosthetic legs, and he got super stoked. And he, it's like probably a month ago, he was talking about how he's getting up and walking, and I better, watch myself, because he's come and kick me with his good foot in my ass. And I thought it was funny. Now, unfortunately, a couple weeks ago, he had a stroke. Didn't recover from that, and ended up passing away at the end of January.
Yeah, it's hard, no matter what the circumstances are. I don't know, man. I'm kind of speechless. A lot of that stuff I didn't know. And, for the listeners, if, when you're listening, if you can't take something from that, I know cancer has touched every one of our lives, and it's touched Joe's life in more ways than one. And I can't go on to explain that we have choices that we make in life, and and for the most part, you're in control of your destiny. No matter what your background is, no matter what you've done, what you've been through, you can control your destiny and by the choices that you make and how hard you work. And Joe is a true testament to that, as well as a lot of veterans. I mean, it's amazing, these stories. And, I have the privilege and the honor of calling Joe one of my very closest friends. And, Joe, thanks for coming on tonight on Valentine's Day. I know you got big plans with your wife, and, I'm going to go out and grab a bite as well. And we're going to be on next week. And next week we'll probably run a little bit longer, just because I want to make sure that your story gets told. But again, man, thanks for telling your story tonight. Thanks everybody for listening, and I hope everybody goes back and listens to this again, because that was super powerful, for Joe to talk about that. And I thank you, man.
Pleasure's on mine.
And it's my pleasure, man. But yeah, so everybody, we'll be back on next week with part 3, and I hope you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful week. God bless you.
You're listening to Wounded But Not Broken with host Patrick Scroggins.
My father was the best truck driver I've ever known in my life. Like a family tradition.
I'm a truck driver myself. I drove around the state with my cat.
To be the truck driver, you not just only see where you go, you see the world in the larger perspective.
This is a really good time to be in the trucking industry. The dispatchers get good loads for them. The equipment is very new, and then it's very reliable.
At GTS Transportation, we make dreams come true by employing truck drivers, dispatchers,